So I've been reading, seeing a lot of posts and videos for that matter of people labeling this is a bad sign, that is a bad sign, this is a bad ritual, that is a bad ritual. I think it's so important to understand that we live in a world of duality, and so things and signs and symbols and could have multiple meanings, could have multiple omens. And it's really important to understand that what really makes someone so good and accurate at being able to understand the symbolism, the sign, the language behind, for instance, like a ritual is discernment and understanding the intention behind what's happening, because intention really matters. Intention matters in everything that we do. So one, before I go into showing you some photos, one, it's important to understand that rituals are not limited to religious and occult ceremonies. At the core, ritual is just a simple structure of repeated actions, and holding a meaning behind those actions, helping to focus your mind, your intention, and energy behind that action. I'm going to give you a few examples because I really want people to understand this, because I really want people to be empowered. I want you to feel empowered after this video and to feel a lot more safe and secure about what you're looking at, and not always to buy into the drama and the negativity, because that's important. Like, for instance, a ritual could be a morning routine, getting up out of bed, going straight to the bathroom, then straight to brush your teeth, then making your bed, then journaling. That's how you're setting the tone for the day. That's a ritual. A ritual could be something like, I see a lot of like athletes, celebrities, people, for instance, that speak, like some athletes or some people, they do like a dance or they say a prayer before they go on stage, or whenever they win, they do a specific dance, or, they're doing the sign of the cross. Like, that is a ritual. That's something that you do repeatedly because you're priming your focus, your mind, and your confidence with something. Then, there's the the good luck intention setting ritual, where it's like lighting a candle, taking deep breaths, silently repeating some affirmations in your head, things like that, because you're trying to anchor the intention of creating consistency in terms of the way you're approaching some life situation or whatever that is. So the key idea here is to understand that rituals only work depending on the intention that you're setting, and also because it's helping you to create some kind of structure, signal, with your mind, your body, and your energy, aligning it all together with like a certain purpose in mind, right? So I want to show you this photograph right here. You see in this photograph, it's a whole bunch of candles. You got a candle next to prayer, candles on birthdays, candle for Hanukkah, candle in a lantern, candle, next to like a Buddha, not Buddha, but I forgot what they're called. Did I say it right? Correct me in the comments. And then you have a candle next to, some occult book. So candles, for instance, every time you see a candle, we know for a fact that it's not necessarily a bad thing. A candle could be used for a ritual, could be used, for setting an intention, and because we're using a candle doesn't mean it's, a good or bad situation. Depends on the intention. For instance, birthdays are for celebrations. We are using candles to celebrate, how lighting a candle for prayer. You're using a candle to help you focus your energy for that prayer. For holidays, people use candles. For lighting a lantern to guide your light, right? And then you have people that actually use it in occult magic. So it's important to understand, when you look at something, don't automatically assume, oh my God, it's so bad, and every time you see it, it's always bad. Then we have the next photograph, right? You have a baby getting baptized, someone taking a shower, and someone going for a swim. We know that water does a lot of different things, you guys. Water is used for rituals and baptisms, used to cleanse your body while you shower, used to exercise. There's different meanings for elements, right? Elements all have different meanings. Sign symbols all have different meanings, right? Then, for instance, this next photo, we got fire. Fire is used to keep us warm. Fire is used to help us cook. Fire is used to guide our light, but also used in rituals as well. Then we have this other photo. I hope you guys get to where I'm going with this. Wait till you see the last one that I'm going to show, because you guys are going to be like, oh, I don't know. Just listen. So we have then this photo where, they're incense. So, in church, they use frankincense, to help us be more deeply meditative during prayer. Then there's frankincense that some religions burn for their ancestors, right? I mean, incense that some people burn for their ancestors. And then we have people that burn incense because they want their home to smell nice. Now, all three have very different intentions, but they're all incense, right? Now we have this photo. I can't wait for you guys to hear the comments on that. How you say I love you. Now, personally, when I say I love you to my kids, I always do the heart and I go like this. However, some people use that sign language to say I love you, but then some people use this other sign language in the bottom half of the photo to say I hate you or to promote some kind of negativity. How do you understand the difference? You have to look at the context and the setting. Okay, not every time that people make that sign language, it's absolutely negative. No, if I'm flipping the bird, yeah, that could be negative. But in some countries, when you flip them the bird, they're thinking you're talking about number one. They're not thinking you're trying to say a bad language to me. So it's so important to understand the context. Don't automatically assume that a symbol that you see is something absolutely negative. It's not always like that. Have to understand the intention. Then now look at this photograph. One symbolism is of a sacrament, sacred burial. And then the other one is a sacrificial burial. They're both being buried, two bodies being buried, but they're being buried for two different purposes. This is why it's so important. Intention matters behind whatever you are doing, okay? In some cultures, for instance, my culture, wearing black, you wear black when you're in mourning. If you go to work all dressed in black, people in my culture will be like, oh, did somebody die? But in other cultures, it represents power. You see a judge is wearing all black. It means they're in a place of power. It doesn't necessarily mean. So you have to understand the context around what's going on. And the reason I say this is because, I want you to be aware of this. Have you ever noticed that, like, wherever you focus your mind, right, that focus seems to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? That's because your energy goes wherever your mind flows. Your thoughts, your attention, your intention are like spotlights, all right? And, they highlight like certain parts of your life, certain parts of your psyche, it guides your energy towards that. So if you're constantly worrying about things, you're constantly thinking, this is a bad sign, that is a bad sign. Well, if you're constantly worrying about what could go wrong or what's going on, well, guess what, you guys? You're going to attract more of those bad negative symbols, right? You're going to attract a lot more of that fear. It's going to feed into your life. However, if you're focusing more on like positive divine signs and symbolism, solutions, gratitude, goals, like your energy starts to really move into that direction, So I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying look at the entire picture, because your mind is such a it's so powerful. It is like a sword. I'm not kidding. It's magic. Your mind is magic. Silence, Prince. Your mind is magic. And so choosing where you place your awareness and how you interpret things, and understanding that your perception of life really makes a big, huge difference, because in essence, your mind is a magnet. And so your energy follows wherever your mind goes, so you have to be really conscious of where you point it and how you interpret things and how you see things. So one, you're not putting yourself in a constant state of fear, but you're elevating yourself, and you're coming from a place of enlightenment. You're coming from a place of wisdom. You're coming from a place of growth and awareness. And that's how you want to live your life. So please, please, please be careful where you're putting your mind to. Be careful in thinking that everything's far more negative than it really is. Because the only way evil, right, could survive if we keep thinking that the world is that bad. Although fucked up shit happens, yes, but we have to be able to see the light in the situation. I was having a conversation the other day with a client, and she's telling me she was really upset about her job. and, you know, someone's giving her a hard time at her job. And I said, and she's like, I want to leave. I said, well, how's everybody else? She goes, oh, everybody is great. This one is great. I'm great with that one. You know, like everything. I said, so why are you putting so much attention towards that one person? Why are you giving them that much leverage when all these other wonderful factors are taking place in your life? Do you understand what I'm going with this? So your perception is really powerful. Be careful in what you choose to believe. Be careful in where you put your energy, and be careful of how you're spending your energy, your time, yourself on things, especially in social media. All right, you guys, I think you had enough. I'll see you in the next video.